With that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us by Raheem Warsaw, who writes, IGN has announced that Sony has scheduled a release date for a new Marvel movie on October 8th, 2021. Do you think Kraven or Madam Web could be heading for that release date? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And just a point of order here, IGN did not announce that. What's actually happening is there are a few sites that are reporting this thing, that Sony is going to be releasing another Marvel-related film in October of 2021. Where this information is actually coming from is a oft-reliable exhibitor relations organization, and that's on Twitter. That's where most of these people are looking at now. So that means we have not heard an official word from Sony saying that this is true. So all the headlines you're seeing about this are all coming from that one source. It is, to be fair, normally a pretty reliable source. So let's, for the sake of argument, roll with it for now, but let's all keep in the back of our heads that Sony itself has not yet confirmed this, even though it kind of looks like it's going that way. So just for the sake of argument, let's go with that. Rob, Sony has been very aggressive lately in their approach to the new IP, the Marvel IP they had. They obviously had tremendous success with Venom. That movie made over $800 million. Like, everybody was proclaiming this movie, it made no sense. It can't work without Spider-Man. It's just Sony. It's not going to do anything. I said this movie will succeed, but even I said it wouldn't hit $800 million. I mean, I said it won't hit 800. I said it'll succeed. It'll be good. It won't hit. Don't be stupid. Any of you think this thing's going to hit $800 million is stupid. And what did it do? It hit over $800 million. But they went from that. We've got Venom 2 coming now. We've got Morbius, which we all just were kind of gawking at how good that trailer was for Morbius, not to mention that they dropped a lot of surprises in it. All that kind of stuff. Now hearing another one. There are a lot of theories going around about if this is true. And if we are getting that October 8th, 2021, that means, Rob, this thing has got to be in motion already. Whatever this project is, it's got to be in motion already. It has to be in pre-production at this point. At minimum, it's got to be in pre-production. And maybe cameras don't roll for another 6-7 months, but they have to be at some stage. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to go out on a limb here, Rob. I believe, as I have believed for a while, the character that makes most sense, and it doesn't need to be this guy, but I think it will be, I think it's Kraven the Hunter. I think there is so much you can do. Kraven is a type of character that is really multifaceted. It's almost like he's a Swiss Army knife of a character. You could take a character like Kraven and fit him into just about any kind of comic book movie you want to do. Whether he's the lead or a supporting character, he can fill a lot of different roles. And when you look at the nature of the character and you look at the Sony universe as they're setting it up now, I think this character could be great. And if you want to try to set up crossover stuff later, dude, listen, ever since I saw the first Venom, I have been drooling at the idea of a Kraven hunting Venom. I've just been, my mind just gets sparkly when I start to think about the potential there of what they could do. Now, that's not to say this is the only character they can be doing this with. Not at all, not in the least. There's a lot of different characters they could do, and they could all be fabulous. But there's just something that tells me, and by the way, I'm not claiming any insider information here, I just think that the character that makes most sense in a universe like this, that gives you great potential for crossover later, I believe is Kraven the Hunter. Rob, let's start with the most basic question. Do you think that this could make sense, that they're releasing yet another film in 2021? And if it is, for argument's sake, which character do you think that 2021 movie could be for?
Well, you know, like you, I've been talking about Kraven the Hunter since back in the Collider Hero days.
Yeah.
When I first met you. And I loved Kraven the Hunter. The thing about that character is he's fairly grounded in reality.
Yes.
And in terms of, okay, Kraven's Last Hunt is one of the most, I think, famous, iconic Spider-Man storylines. But the thing about Kraven is he's easily ported over to Venom, because who wouldn't want to hunt an extraterrestrial symbiote? especially if he becomes more well known in the public eye after Venom 2, however they're going to play it. And it makes sense to me that you bring in a character like I love characters like Kraven. I love characters like Deathstroke. The Terminator has always been one of my favorite DC villains, obviously introduced in the pages of Teen Titans. And I love the idea that you have a cunning, a very dangerous person who is someone that doesn't really have a lot of remorse for what he's doing. And I love that. I love those kinds of villains. And again, he's grounded. He's not some wacky villain like the Rhino was, And I think that as a spider, and like you said, crossover potential. Once you've hunted Venom, you go after the most dangerous game, and that is, of course, man, and that leads you to Spider-Man. And I think it'd be great. I mean, I don't know if they'll be able to get it out in 2021, but maybe.
Here's the thing. This is why not only do I think it would be great to do Kraven for all the reasons you just mentioned, I think it's important that whether it's Kraven or not, that Sony continues on to develop this universe. And here's why. I believe comic book movies took a hit when Disney took over Fox. Now, I've talked about this before, and I believe this wholeheartedly. There is advantage for us as movie fans, as comic book movie fans, to there being a diversity of organizations making these comic book movies. Because listen, as great as Marvel does, and everybody knows I'm a huge fan of the MCU, I have some criticisms, but I'm a huge fan of the MCU.
Me too.
Great as they do in mixing up their genres, you got political thrillers, you got comedies, you got more action kind of fare, they mix it up, they do. They are still Marvel movies because it's an MCU that has a philosophy and has a direction for their things, and they are, at the end of the day, still MCU movies. I love the fact that we see DC, Birds of Prey notwithstanding, that we see DC being on a bit of a roll with Aquaman, with Shazam, with Joker. We got Wonder Woman 84 coming because not only are they giving us good, fun, entertaining movies, they're giving us different movies. And, DC has their own flavor, their own DNA, their own direction and philosophy of making them. And that gives us as an audience a bit of diversity. When we lost Fox and the Fox X-Men universe, they put out some crappy movies, but they also put out some of the greatest comic book movies of all time. When we lost Fox, we lost one of the voices. We lost one of the voices telling these stories that told them in a different way. That, yes, did create some real crap fests of movies, but also created some of the greatest ones of all time. I believe that really makes it all the more important that Sony hopefully succeeds because it would be yet another voice, a different DNA, a different philosophy a little bit. And that's why, like, when I hear some of my fellow comic book movie fans going, I hope everything goes back to Marvel, I'm like, God, you have no idea what it is you're hoping for. Because you're talking about homogenizing an entire genre. You're talking about homogenizing an entire genre into one DNA. And that's not good for Marvel. That's not good for comic book movie fans. So I really don't just see this as exciting that maybe we get a Kraven or a Madam Web or another movie altogether. But I think it's really important that we see Sony being active and aggressive and trying to do this. And they're going to make some films that are awesome, and they're going to make some films that are terrible. But I still think the fact that they're making them at all, Rob, has inherent value. How do you see that?
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, look, we've got Morbius coming out. Morbius the Living Vampire. I never thought I would ever see a Morbius the Living Vampire movie with Jared Leto, you know? I really did not believe that I would ever see that. And we're getting it, and it looks really good. You know, and I was watching a little bit of Venom the other day, and, you know, Venom's pretty fun. I was being a snob about it, but, you know, going back and looking at it again, it's pretty fun. And I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I liked, as much as hit and miss it might have been, I think Fox did a lot of really great stuff with the X-Men movies. X-Men 2, actually X-Men 1 and 2, Days of Future Past, Logan, and I even have a little bit of love for Apocalypse, more than a lot of people do. And I think they did a lot of really interesting stuff with those characters. I'm really excited to see New Mutants. I have high hopes, believe it or not. And I think you're right. I think a diversity, that's why I mentioned that movie Fast Color. that was not even based on a comic book. That's an original indie superhero film, the way Chronicle was, which was also a Fox film. I think we absolutely need more diverse movies. And when I say diverse, I'm not talking about the people in them, although that's great too. I'm talking about the way that the subject matter is adapted. You mentioned Blue is the Warmest Color earlier today in the show. That was based on a graphic novel.
That's true.
And like you said, that movie is shattering. I love that film so much. And there's so many different kinds. Like, where's our new Road to Perditions? Where's our new, like, Two Guns was based on a comic book. There's so many interesting. I know The Kitchen was too. Eesh. Yeah. But there's a lot of diversity that we could have in terms of superhero movies. And I think, like you, that's why I'm actually up Bloodshot. I want to see Bloodshot. I hope
it's good. I hope it's better than it looks.
Right? Let's see the Valiant universe. Bring that on, son.
And here's the other thing. Like, I think still a lot of comic book movie fans still fail to understand one of the most basic principles, and that's this. You should hope. Like, look, you can like or dislike Marvel movies. You can like or dislike DC movies. You can like or dislike the Sony movies. That's fine. But if you're a fan of the genre, you should hope they're good. You should hope they're good. You know, there's just some people saying, oh, I want Sony's movies bad. Listen to the words of Kevin Feige. Kevin Feige, who on multiple occasions has said directly, it is better for all of us when all these other films do well. It is better for all of us because when people go to a comic book movie, we want them to love it because that increases the chances they're going to come and see our comic book movie. Kevin Feige has said this over and over and over again, and he's right. And he's right. Like, think about how much money the Marvel movies make now, right? Piggybacking on what Kevin Feige said, like, if movies like Batman versus Superman, Justice League, all these other big comic book movies, if they had all been fantastic and everybody loved them, piggybacking on what Kevin Feige said, can you imagine how much more successful the MCU stuff would be? Like, and that's the thing. I just think comic book fans, again, you may watch a Sony comic book movie and not like it, and that's perfectly fine. But you should hope that they're great. Because if it's great, it's good for everybody. And I think Kevin Feige is 100% right about that. And we'll see how that goes. Anyway, guys, question is for you. How do you feel about all this? What more particularly do you think that movie, if this information is true, and we're getting in October 2021, another Marvel-based property being produced by Sony, what movie do you think or hope that could be? Jump on down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right.